My guest today has an extremely special space in my heart because she's actually a personal friend. She lives down the road from me, but she is an incredible businesswoman who has really inspired me with my business. She is called Emma Wood and her business is of the same name, Emma Wood Interiors, and she's just about to launch a new wing to her business called Emma Wood Home. So if you like Ralph Lauren vibes, it's kind of like Ralph Lauren, eat your heart out. This is the new lady in town. She has got the most incredible eye for detail and for beauty and for understanding what clients really want and need. And what's been so inspiring about Emma is she took something she's skilled at, something from her training background. So she comes from fashion background and design, had children, and then launched an interior design, and she changed it from something that's a nice side hustle into an extremely commercial business where she now has a really substantial team, and she is designing everything from massive houses to corporate spaces to places in airports to just 2-bedroom flats. She does it all with such executional excellence and excellent design with a brilliant team behind her. And there is so much momentum behind what Emma is doing. She's one of those business leaders where you just want a piece of the pie. You just want to join in because of who she is, what she is, and how she does it. You're going to get so many nuggets from this conversation. And I've interviewed her because in our different spaces in business, so we may have nothing to do with interior design, but there are truths that she is using. There are methods she is using within her space that are transferable to ignite your passion and your execution in your spaces as you lead your projects, you lead your teams, you lead individuals, and you lead yourself. So listen in and see where the parallels lie for you to give you a wider vision for your space. Emma, it is so lovely to have you on the pod, and you only live up the road, so I feel we should be doing this live. But how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you, Dolly, and thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm a podcast virgin, actually.
Excellent. Oh, so well, welcome. I'll try and go nice and gentle.
Thank you. Be gentle with me, please.
So, Emma, what does extraordinary leadership mean to you?
I think for me, it is. I mean, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but it is all about the team, and it's all about finding the exact right people for your office or your team or your business. And I think that is what makes great leadership. It's identifying the key character traits of those people and what you need for your business to drive it forward. And it's identifying that. And I think that a lot of it's to do with gut instinct, actually. It's following your gut and realizing the sort of inherent talents that people have. And for me, that has definitely driven my business forward. It's understanding what I need for my business, but also identifying from other people what I need from them to help me. So it's understanding the gaps and seeing what I need.
What's really interesting with your business is, and I've observed it from afar, but it's a natural skill and expertise you've got, interior design, fashion, it's your background. But starting a business with something you're passionate about and love, but you've turned it from, dare I say it, a lovely hobby that might do well on Etsy to actually a really profitable commercial space that's growing. And something that you've done is you've created a lot of energy around it that makes people want to be involved. Like even I'm not in interior design. I'm like, oh, I want to be part of the gang. And there's a lot of momentum and energy in your business that's got it to where it is and is moving forward. How do you transfer your passion, your energy with the commercial? Like, do you even know? You probably don't, but let's figure out, how have you done it?
I think firstly, I mean, the classic thing is you've got to absolutely love what you do. I mean, I am so obsessed with visual stimuli. So, and it doesn't have to be interiors. My background is in fashion buying. And I am completely obsessed with, clothes, hotels, restaurants, interiors of any sort. It could be anything. Paintings, art, museums. You have to really love it. It's like nourishment. I need that visual nourishment, and that's then sort of projects out of me for my business. And I feel like the people I employ, they don't have to have the same brain as me and be simulated in that way, but also they have to be excited about what we're doing and what we do. For example, the new ranges that we're launching behind me, is that, we get everyone on board right from the beginning. They have to understand, and again, this is from my fashion background, right from the thinking behind the design. If I can, I'll take them to the factories to see the manufacturing process, to see all the detail that's involved. How were the designs created? Where did we source them from? Anything like that. It's just pulling out all the strands of all the inspiration behind the designs, be it interiors or products, and for them to understand all those different layers, to understand why we've come to the outcome we can. And it means that if they're stood on a stand at one of the trade shows and someone asks them, well, what's that about? They can immediately tell someone or sell the product, because they are totally immersed in the design process from the very start. And that doesn't have to be one of my assistant designers as well. That's right through to the studio manager who does all the finances, everyone. They have to love it.
So, I mean, you're preaching to the choir here, because as you know, I come from a family business, a jewelry background. And obviously when we were dealing with things that are visually beautiful and quite arresting, it taps into a different part of ourselves than if we were, say, I was sharing before that my late stepfather, he made a specific type of bolt for underwater tunnels. So, dare I say it, the product is quite a little less stimulating. But just thinking.
But I bet he knew everything about bolts and the industry of bolts and what his competitors are doing. And there must be something quite beautiful in bolts and how they work, and, identifying the gap of what other people want of those bolts, and it's the same process.
This is where we need to link it 100%, because we don't want to have a bias, because so some people will say, oh, you're lucky working in that industry. It must be so fun and exciting. Yeah. Let's be honest, there are some sectors that are probably a little bit more sexy to work in than others. However, what you shared is you get excited about hotels, restaurants, all interiors, airport lounges, whatever. Your wide angle lens on your space stimulates you. And it's funny, when I'm working with people who work in slightly more less glamorous, exciting product places, there is still an ability, isn't there, to get excited about things on the peripheral of their sector, and to keep kind of nourishing yourself in that space to get the kind of nuts and bolts of what it is.
Absolutely. And I think if you're working in a certain sector and you're immersed in that sector, and you've been brought on board by a good manager to feel immersed and proud of what you do, and there are huge amounts of other things that, are transferable that you're looking at. I've been known to sit and stare at an airport ceiling. I don't do airport ceilings, but there might be an element of a design of a lighting or some plan or something that I'm staring. And my kids are often going, "What are you doing?" And it's just there's elements, and it's curiosity, isn't it? And it's being interested in things that may not directly apply to what you do, but it's about being curious and having that element of curiosity and kind of going, that isn't what I do, but that could be applied, whether it's on the business side of things, or whether it's design, or, just being curious, basically. You never know what you're going to come across.
I think that's a really key word for anyone listening. Actually, if we're feeling a bit humdrum, like stuck in a space with work, and want some of that energy and passion and momentum to get into the minutiae of everything and bring our teams into it, the key word probably is that the curiosity is gone.
Absolutely.
And how do you think we can get, because I'm sure there are times when you do hit humdrum, if you're doing a project that's just tailing on and on and on, and the energy part's gone, and it's now just executing the final bits. There's always those parts, aren't there?
Yeah.
How do you think we can reignite a bit of curiosity and excitement for a space of work we're in?
I mean, it's an interesting one because I definitely trained when I started my training in the early 90s. It was very much a work ethic that you sat at your desk and you worked through lunch and you worked till late
Yeah.
every day. And it was frowned upon for leaving early or, having a life outside of work, really. And I think now I'm a really, really big believer. And it doesn't need to apply just to creative industries of taking a step out, go for a walk, go and see an exhibition, go and it's we've all had those dreams or gone for a lovely walk and suddenly an idea has pinged in your head, and that's not a coincidence. It's giving your brain a rest and basically thinking about things in a different way. If you're basically engrossed in work and stress and high cortisol levels, you are never going to think creatively or think outside the box and come up with the next solution or something to drive the business forward. Go for a walk, go take half a day off. And, I am a big believer. I mean, I'd like to say I practice what I preach, but I get out as much as I can, and just have that brain rest where you give your brain the ability to switch off and think creatively and think laterally about the workplace. And it will come to you, but it certainly won't come to you just sitting at your desk staring at a screen for hours on end, because that you can respond to emails and you can draw, respond to everyday tasks.
Yeah.
But if you want to think of the bigger picture, definitely step out, I would say. My big thing is zoom out of a business. I'm very visual, and I imagine, we're so used to using our fingers to zoom out on an Apple screen, and I visually or mentally think that I zoom out of a scenario. So imagine you're zooming out on a Apple screen, and that is what you need to do in a stressful circumstance or creatively. Just zoom out and try and think of the horizon.
It's actually incredible wisdom. And as my words, not yours, but you are an expert in the creative space. So, and business, and run a very profitable, successful business. It's the first thing to go. I notice when I'm doing work with teams and businesses, and obviously well-being and comes into play as a kind of metric we look at. And whenever innovation is low, it's always in tandem with a low metric in well-being. The first thing to go when there's cognitive overload and exhaustion is innovation, because our brains whittle down. And the big lie is that many of us believe as a mindset is stay in it to solve it. It feels so counterintuitive to step away from 400 emails and big jobs, deadlines. But actually, that is where we can get into a zoom out space, as you call it, to then come back in with a more effective approach that's creative.
Absolutely. And there's a lot to be said. I know the classic eat the frog, for me, I will always go through my email, but flag the things that I really don't want to do and get them done first. First thing in the day, because I know by the afternoon, I'm not going to tackle those stressful emails. I just get them done, and then you can do the lighter stuff, the stuff that doesn't require as much energy in the afternoons. But things like that. And go for a walk at lunchtime. You don't have to sit at your desk the entire day, and have a break, really. And that also applies massively to interior design. There's huge things that you can do for interior design in the office or home environment that massively affect well-being and cognitive function. And all of that, there's huge amounts of research saying about spatial flow and visual clutter that actually really does affect workspaces and how your the happiness and well-being of the workforce. And that's a huge thing, and there's lots you can do with that.
Do there is on that a little aside that I've heard that children's hospitals have interior designers that come in to do beautiful pictures and paintings to inspire and make the children feel happier. And then the adult hospitals don't have anything. white walls everywhere. And I know a charity that is pushing, constantly trying to fundraise to do that for adults in hospital. So Emma, I'm really longing to ask a question about interior design and how we can link it to designing business and projects and team culture. So we're going to see where this goes. But I want to ask you, when you get a project such as, hi, Emma, I'd like you to come and do a complete interior design on my house.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a 2 up, 2 down. I've just bought it. It looks like this. I kind of have got some ideas of what I want. Please, can you do it? Okay. And I'm just going to link this to anyone listening, that what can we learn from this next bit of the conversation of how we go into a new project, a new client, setting up a new business, or taking on a new role. We're inheriting something and we've got to navigate how to design something new. And I just want to see what we can borrow from your specific sector space that can add extra to our areas. So what's your process when someone gives you that brief?
I mean, there is a process, because obviously we don't want to start from scratch every time a new client approaches. And actually, this has been a long time in development. So it's like a triangle, a beautiful triangle, but the bottom of the triangle is the absolute, so the onboarding. So if a client comes to us, we have so many beautiful photos. We have a gorgeous welcome pack that is very personal, because they are dealing effectively with me. So they want to feel like I'm responding to them. So we will send out a welcome pack. It will list all our products, services, everything that we offer. So even if they haven't thought of, we might need a full end-to-end interior solution, i.e. a complete turnkey service, we can offer right from putting cutlery in the drawers, dressing the home. So that is the very first port of call. And it does mean that anyone in the office can send out that information. Everyone is trained to do that. So we act very quickly if we get a new client, because a new client is gold to us. You know, we treat them. They are, absolutely of utmost importance. From then on, I will have a sort of discovery call of just sort of discussing about the project. And we do projects from huge, big commercial ventures right through to 1 bedroom. You know, it just entirely depends on what they need. So we will do a discovery call, and then more often than not, I will do a meet and greet with them. And that appointment is the most important thing, because most of the time we either have they have no idea what they think they think they have no idea what they want on interiors, or B, it's usually a husband and wife who have completely polar opposite tastes, and they don't know how to marry those tastes to create a home that they both love. And it's my job to basically go along and it's like being a visual detective. So I can, and it's a long time learning, but I basically go and look at clues. So obviously I can say, can you provide me with a Pinterest board, and some will, but more often not, they won't. But I will basically, they will show me around their often new home or their previous home, and I will look at what paintings have they got on the wall, where do they go on holiday, you know, even things like what food do they like to eat, you know, what colours are they wearing. Everything leads to me starting to get an idea of what they may like. They don't think they know, but they do know. It's just my job to draw it out of them. And that's something gained from years of experience of being able to do that.
Wow.
I would say 95% of the time we get it right. We've never had any interior scheme that we've designed that they absolutely hate. So thank goodness. But yeah, I mean, it's literally being part therapist, part visual detective.
I love that, because actually, so I'm just thinking in the space that my audience are listening to, this is actually key when we are in sales. So I work with fintechs, for example, and you know, totally different sectors to yours, you know, manufacturing. But actually, when we have a client, it's very easy to just have your product and
Yes.
try and sell through being nice or, being relationally, telling people what they need. But there's something in here I just want to dive into about how can we up our visual detective skills? What clues are we missing? Especially with our team. If I'm inheriting a new team, we want to come with our onboarding like, hi guys, welcome. I'm Dolly, your new team leader. This is my vision for the year. This is how I want us to work as a team. You can come in with all your kind of pack of what you're planning to do. But the ultimate thing is, how do you, on that discovery call, that one-on-one time, how do I get the best out of that team member? How do I get my client to really want my service?
Yeah.
So there is this thing of that conversation you're talking about, being a detective, looking for clues.
Yeah.
So for you, obviously, you're looking for, visual clues, which we could do as well. What kind of questions would you ask? So I have two questions for you. What questions do you ask?
Yeah.
And or when it's all a bit foggy and confused, how do you navigate it?
Sometimes because I'm very visual. It's not questions asked, actually. Sometimes it's literally clues, or I will go around and go, oh, that's a beautiful painting. Where was that from? And they'll go, oh, I bought that in, I don't know, Spain, or we love those ochre and blues and reds, and that Spanish kind of, that's them. That's my dream place to be. So, or they will, often they'll come to me because I have a certain style of design as well. I tend to use a lot of color and print. So that can often lead to a conversation of their favorite designers or what they've watched on TV. And the same applies to any business. If you start sort of drilling down into any business, they know who their competitors are, or who they admire, or who they want to be. And there's a reason for that, and it's things like graphic design is so important in business. And, every company has a certain style to it, and who they aspire to be, and the language that they're promoting, and the visual aspect of each company. And it's exactly the same with interiors or in fashion as well. Everyone wants to aspire to be a certain style or business or look, or be in a certain market sector. And it's the same. Homes are aspirational, as is fashion is aspirational, and everyone kind of wants their home to be a certain style or look. And it's often certainly visual interest, or what your loves are very often generated by what you've loved, or you've grown up in, a style of house you've grown up in, or clothes or fashion, or things that you were interested in when you were younger. They were all it's like a box, and they're all sort of pieces that form a jigsaw in a box that you've learned over your lifestyle. So it could be a style of wallpaper you loved, or your mum had in a lounge when you were a kid, and that harks back to, it's a feeling of love and nurturing. And it's the same. So there's loads that you can get from it, and it's just asking the right questions, really.
And it comes back to that word of but being curious about the clues that are there.
Yeah, it is.
Because when, a lot of things that come up in this space that I'm in is how do we get the best out of our team? Because, I always say there's two bottom lines. You've got your profit, your numbers bottom line, but your people are your second bottom line. How are they doing? How can we get the most out of them? So if we think of our people that are working for us, our teams, as you look at your clients, we're looking for clues in them when they're not performing, or when they've reached their potential, we want them to go to the next level. What clues are we missing that we can be curious about and have that detective lens on to think, actually, you love travel. How could we bring more of that into your space, in the customers we're getting you to interact with, or your approach?
I think personality is such a big thing in modern day office culture now, and also for sort of interiors and home. I think, back in the day, the sort of homogenized office schemes, they don't work for people. I mean, there's a huge big study done by the University of Exeter, basically saying personalized office spaces now increase productivity. I think it's by something like 38%, where people get to personalize their spaces, and I think I'm often called in these days to redesign offices where they don't, and again, I think it stems from working from home, but they don't want to feel like they're in that sort of cookie cutter in an office pod. It's depressing. The strip lighting, biophilic design, which is lots of greenery, fresh air, lighting. It's so, so important. And I think adding personality and getting the elements of the personality for your key workers is so important to understand them and what they can bring to that into your office culture, because it's just everything. And in turn, that will make them happier, that they feel appreciated and understood and valued.
So I do lots of days away with companies, and often it's in a functional, sometimes very nice, but quite not much personality. Sometimes it's very sterile. But I had one in Fortnum and Mason the other day. Oh, I mean, to be honest, it was so distracting that I
maybe a bit.
I mean, even all the snacks were brought out on like sort of 6 plates on top of each other, all stacked beautifully, and there was a lot going on. But it did feel like quite a magical place to connect with people.
Totally inspiring.
And it did elevate people to feel comfortable and to feel cocooned in a beautiful, quintessentially British environment. So going to the next step. So you have these discovery conversations where you're looking for clues, visual detective. You're going to be constantly zooming out to think, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? When you've got your brief, there comes a point where you have to then make decisions and start looking at a room and going, right, this is on me. How do you do that?
Well, again, it's that triangle. So the starting process for any good design scheme is to measure. It's all about the detail. It's the most boring bit, but if you don't have the core foundations to that design, it doesn't work. So, if, for example, if we were designing a lounge, we would have all the measurements. It then gets put into our CAD system, because spatial flow, ergonomics are massive. There is no point me putting an enormous sofa in a lounge where and we've all been in those rooms where you're sort of going, oh, sorry, and tiptoeing around a piece of furniture. It has to flow. So all of those points need considering before we even start sort of sourcing any furniture or FF&E, as we call it, which is fixtures, fitting and equipment. So
that's like a real clarity of the metrics of what we've got to play with. What are the borders and boundaries of how we're going to create?
So we would measure again, and things like, it's all the stuff that's, how I see it, in the walls and the floor. So if we were doing a full build, we then need to consider the lighting, because if any full builds, lighting and water are the first things that need to be considered. So it's all the essential things. So
prioritize stuff.
Where's the lighting? We would always do layered lighting, considering the different settings of the room, all of that. And then the big thing for me is I always like some sort of impact in a room. So I will often that comes from what the client already has. It could be a painting that they've inherited, or just a beautiful poster that they've picked up when they were in their 20s traveling, and that is, again, going back to those visual clues. That might be the starting point for a whole room scheme. So I love art. I use art a lot in my rooms. We use a lot of vintage furniture as well, but it could be the painting. The painting on the mantelpiece will then basically everything. It's like an echo. It will just some sort of wave will pull out the strands of colour from that painting and then start layering on top. But again, even when we start doing what we call the phase 2 design pack, it will have all the furniture, but then the client will also have that all listed. It's important for them to understand all the costs involved. They can really link on all the products to see what we're recommending. So it's a huge amount of work to get to the point where we actually go and present this beautiful design scheme. There is so much thinking that goes into it, because when they actually produce that design scheme, we need to know that, number one, they can walk around the room, they can have it beautifully lit in the evenings, the fabrics need to be suitable. If it's a busy family with very young children, I need fabrics that are washable. There's loads and loads of thinking that goes into any sort of room scheme. And that's it really. So the top of the triangle is the beauty. It's the lovelies, as I call it. So
Nice.
the lovelies are, the really wow impact pieces.
Yeah.
The pieces I often say to a client, if they're doing a full house refurb and there's lovelies, buy some of those lovelies first, because by the end of a build, they often don't have the budget for the lovelies, and it's the lovelies that make that house a home, and it's what they really love about the place. And it could be buy the beautiful painting, buy the lovely sofa, because by the end of it, you won't have the budget to do it.
So what I'm marrying together though is this, and this is the kind of secret sauce to your ordinary, extra to many, is you're in a sector that's an area you're passionate about, that is a lovely sector, and it's easy to be inspired by it. But there is this key thing of being commercial and execution and actually delivering.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise,
they have to go hand in hand. And there is plenty of interior designers out there who don't understand that, because there is no point me doing a beautiful interior if, I'm running a business, and unless the core level of my business and all the processes are in place, I'm not going to make any money. No. Because it's such a labor intensive business as well, that if I don't allow for that side of the business and invoicing and all of that, the right hand brain of my business, it's untenable. You just won't make any money.
And that's what I've observed with you, is that you execute so professionally and so exquisitely, and yet bring in the lovelies and make it look gorgeous, and it looks effortless, which means you're truly skilled. But let's just talk about this execution piece, the core details. When you're looking at a project, the core details, the non-sexy bits, the tape measures, that, oh gosh, that's an awkward corner. So I'm just thinking of KPIs, transferring it to that we work with sales a lot. They're trying to push massive sales, targets as high as here. How have you learnt to really spot what are the core non-negotiable executionary things that you need to do? So of course it's measuring, but how have you discerned the kind of key metrics of your core details?
To be honest, in most build projects, it's you can't not, because I could go in and slosh some paint on the walls and add some lovely bits of furniture. But if the walls are uneven, or they're not plastered properly, or, it's the walls aren't straight, or the flooring isn't straight, or, it's those elements of design that unfortunately is boring, and more often than not the clients don't like. None of us like spending money on that sort of stuff, but unless you've got that, it will bring everything else down. I think unfortunately it is quite boring, but it means that you can layer on top of it the lovelies. You can layer on the gorgeousness, and it means that also we're not here for a quick turn. My core of my business is about longevity. If you're investing in your home and spending time, I don't like to follow trends. We want to basically supply a service that the client and will be happy to live in, or a commercial space that will last for years. But because of that, you need to get the skeleton of the property, or the commercial property, right. It's you can't not, basically. It's the real core. And again, it's the business process. If you haven't got those elements right at the heart of your business, you're going to miss out on invoicing. You're going to miss out on potentially new clients, because your processes aren't in place. And also it's such a ball ache to try and do those processes with each. When I first started, I was trying to, do them every time. And I was, it's invest in the key, invest in, for us, it's a closeout of a project. We try and do a coffee table book for the clients that is a before and after, and it shows, you know,
Lovely.
it sits in their lounge and it shows them, and their friends come over and go, oh, what a beautiful home. And we're like, well, look what it looked like before. And again, that's just promotion for us, but they love it. But
Yeah.
also, you know, we will always have good photography done. And that photography goes for miles for us because it's social
Yeah.
media, it's website, you know, there's key closeout things. The project doesn't finish the minute we close that door and the client says, thank you very much, we love it. There's so much more we can do with it. And I think
This is
that's
what
really
you do.
important.
This is what you do so well, though. It's this execution and business development. So, you know, you're just launching or have launched Emma Wood Interiors alongside Emma Wood. Sorry, that's long-standing, but you've now launched Emma Wood Home,
We're about to, yes, this autumn.
which is furniture and
Mm-hmm.
fabrics and wallpapers and colours,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah.
So, this, you know, you're constantly pushing to the next space, and yet you're executing with such sort of reliable process.
Yeah.
How do you, so in my book, I have a chapter called Balcony Views and Burning Buildings. And it's this concept of looking down and looking up. So the burning buildings are the execution, like, fixing, problem solving, doing.
Yeah.
But the importance to get into the balcony view, as you would call it, zoom out, taking time out of the minutiae so that you can think about the bigger picture, the business development, the coffee table books, actually how to make that happen to push your business further, create new furniture for your new enterprise. But when many of my clients work for big corporates and they get caught in burning buildings, execution, and almost think that business development can come later, and it's not my business, it's someone else's. My manager will do it, my leader will do it. How have you managed to balance the busyness and addictiveness of execution with business development?
With great difficulty.
Thanks.
If I'm being honest, and it has taken me this long to get to this stage of process and nurturing team. So having the processes in place that I can delegate as much as I can, because at the end of the day, you know, it's my name on the business, and any new client wants to meet me, which is absolutely what I want. But it means that it's not as enabling for me to make the business as scalable as I want. However, now I have a really amazing design team in place that I will always be taking an overview of every project that comes in. But the design, you know, I will always be the first port of call with the clients. But my design team, I trust so much now with my vision that they can take over the design process, which means I have freed up time to do the Emma Wood home and thinking laterally about my business and how to make it more scalable. Because with the best will in the world, I still want to have that input into the design process. So for the interiors, that means that realistically, there's only so many interiors I can do in a year.
Right.
I have to be realistic about that because I still want to keep it tight. There are huge, big interior design companies that clearly the figurehead name on the business has never seen the interior that's been designed. And I don't want that. I still want that personalization level of my design. However, how do I make the business scalable? I feel the business plays into my strengths, and my previous strengths in my fashion career is make it scalable by doing products that is still intrinsically Emma Wood, but that's scalable. So it's twofold.
How have you found a design team? Oh, not that you just found them. What's been the process of now having a design team that you trust implicitly with your secret sauce?
Again, it's gut instinct. So when I interview, I do see some of their work. And again, it's those clues. So finding who the designers they like, you know, tell me what hotels you like staying in. Tell me, where's your favorite place to go on holiday? All of those I can tell. If they're, you know, for example, into minimalist design and love white and beige. Clearly, as you can see, my studio behind me is not very Emma Wood, but it's also giving them the space and the freedom that whatever training they need, I'll make, if I feel, again, I can learn a lot from often they're much younger than me, and they're maybe more tech savvy. I can learn a lot from them as well. They may be following, AI is transforming my business, and they may be more savvy on all of that and what's happening, and visuals and certain apps and processes that we can use. So I'm learning from them on both sides. And it is a process, certainly when we're looking at a design pack before we present, it will be a sitting around the table and going through it and going, well, in my experience, I'm not 100% that they might like that, but then they'll say their thinking behind it. And it's totally a sort of 360 process with design as well. And it depends on the client.
Because finding a tribe to run with so that we can do more is key. And you talk about team. And I think this is, bringing it back round to the business space. Doing it on our own, we'll only ever get so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll sink as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can take this on any level, but, I have, as you know, 4 kids and we've just moved house, and it's so much easier if I just do it, if I just do the jobs. But I can't actually go further with my time when I'm doing it all. So there comes a point when we've just had a big family team talk, actually let's realign, guys. Here are jobs. Here's the buy-in. Let's have a tactical conversation of what we can all do more, rather than it just being it's easier for me to do it.
Absolutely. And it's life skills.
It is, but it's activating for people's potential. So I've created a bit of competition with my younger 2 with certain jobs and chores, and they're just getting up now and poo collecting in the garden from the dogs, and it's their day.
From the dogs.
It's a horrible big job. We've got 2 big dogs. But I'm just thinking, like, all of this, we have this lie again with execution and business development. We get caught in the weeds. Similarly with delegating, we get caught in the trap of it's easier if I do it my way.
But you won't be able to ever expand your horizons and expand your business if you're trying to do everything yourself. The other thing I have done as well which is quite niche, but some of my best team members, I call it the power of the school gates. So I identified when my children were much, much younger that standing at the school gates, all being shattered and waiting for our kids, having those chats with mums and realizing the potential stood there next to me at the school gates was being totally underutilized.
Wow.
So, a lot of them had worked for city law firms, were in very, very previous careers in high up in marketing in very prestigious London companies. And they're all stood there standing going, well, we're really bored, but we can't find a job that will do anything stimulating around picking up our kids.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, I'll employ you and you. And I did. And actually what's happened is that those people now, obviously the kids get older, they still want to be based locally and be flexible in their working hours. And oh my goodness me, the power that has come from the abilities of these unbelievably amazing women is incredible. So there's a lot of potential.
Let's just nod to that, because actually I feel that women in their kind of mid-30s to 50s are the most underutilized economic drivers that we are underutilizing for that very reason that you've just said. I know it's within a certain kind of set space, like a lot of people work all through, but there are some that have had to, on child 2 or 3, have had to step down.
Absolutely. And it's, it's just having that. They can work from home. They can be as flexible as they want, but also having the systems in place in my studio that gives the ability to work from home if needs be. So we have we use G Drive and all the documents, anyone can access them from anywhere. It's enabling that. Obviously, it's nice for them to be in the studio when they can be, but I'm totally fine for them, we all, whatever, be it kids or whatever in life, there is always circumstances where you need to be flexible.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to I'm so far beyond those days in early 90s where you had to sit at a desk and feel like you couldn't leave. And you don't get the best out of people, and it's recognizing those talents. And my goodness me, has that helped drive my business forward, having these amazing people on board?
But you know what you've done there, and just bringing it back round, you've been a detective again. You were looking for visual clues. You were seeing these women. You were hearing their stories and going, "You're underutilized and have great skill. I need skill." And it's really interesting, Emma. And I wonder if this, going back to what I said at the beginning, the energy and momentum around your business that is tangible, is that you are constantly on looking for clues to help the business grow, looking outside of kind of normal channels to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also very honest, I think back in the day, you'd almost pretend as if you didn't know something, you'd sort of fudge it and get by. Now I'm very, I am definitely a left brain creative type. I was not maths, science in school. I was in the art room, in my happy place. Whereas my studio manager is absolutely right brain thinking. I drive her to despair, but she is Mrs. Logic. She gets joy out of doing spreadsheets. I do not get joy out of doing spreadsheets, but I am, and she will talk. Obviously, we're across all the financials because that's the core of the business, but it's not my strength. It is absolutely not my strength. But what my strength, I think, is to identify the person who would have that strength, who would be engaged and on board in this type of business, but also bring that to the pot, because no one can do everything. I
love that, because you and again, in business and team, we have to look for our gaps and recognize, I've got a gap. But that you've got to take a gut feeling like this could work.
Yeah.
But recognize we're going to drive each other mad. But I need what you've got, and you need what I've got, and there's a synergy there.
Yeah.
Emma, as we come into land, there's just so many great nuggets here. If someone's listening now, what would be, is big word, no pressure, but like, what would be for this day your sort of manifesto or 60-second inspiration to share about running a business and or how you design things to help someone who is just in the humdrum of being a senior leader in a corporate? What would be your sort of, from your learnings, to encourage them or inspire them from your space?
Well, again, we were talking about time out, so take some time out, set the foundations, set the processes. There are so many AI apps these days as well that can help. We use a time tracking app, for example, called Harvest, that all my team use to track time. So it's billable hours. Look at the structure of your team as well. So we're looking at how the structure works, but also look at the personality of your team members. Business is about personality. That's what gives you the edge, whether it's your product, but also your team members, and encourage that personality. Get information from them about their personality that could benefit your business. There's a lot out there. So business is about structure, personality, but also, as I said, my big thing is zoom out and look at the bigger picture where you can. There may be stressful situations. Again, zoom out and look at the bigger picture of that, of how you can remedy it, how you can push your business forward. And also, you don't need to follow that straight road.
Nice.
Emma Wood Home isn't the natural progression for a lot of interior designers. But I've decided to sort of turn right on it and go down that path. And who knows, but I feel good about it, and it feels like the natural fit for me. So definitely trust your gut as well. It's all about gut instinct.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's the structure of a team. Can you just, we haven't got time to go into it, but what kind of questions would you be asking for people to consider the structure of their team? Like, just how would we unlock that?
Well, again, it's about personalities. So finding, we just talked about gaps. So finding out what those people love, for a start. You know, even my right-brained office manager who loves spreadsheets also loves interiors. She loves her home, you know, and it's finding the detail. So obviously finding out what their skill set is and how it can benefit your business, that's key. But also, you know, the fit for your company, because if they're the right fit for your company, they will be with you for a long time and they will work and develop with you. So, for example, my assistant designer, who's now my design associate, has been with me for over a year now. But, you know, we've nurtured him of what abilities he needs and also what he can bring to the table. You know, it's finding their skill sets, what he can bring and benefit me, but also what I can benefit him through my experience. And hopefully he feels like part of the collective. We definitely feel like a collective here rather than just you know, I'm in charge. I give the orders. That is not how I run my business. And also be kind. I know it's a bit cliche.
No.
But business, as far as I'm concerned, is all about kindness. And again, I cut my teeth in the fashion industry where kindness was not a thing back in the day. It was brutal. And I definitely, you know, you need to be kind in business to clients, to your team. You will get the best out of them and they will be loyal because of it.
I love it. It's such a soft word, but it's so true. I think being kind within business, but also being kind to businesses. Something I noticed. You see all these signs everywhere saying we will not tolerate, you know, abuse. And I always go, come on, chill out, London, you know, Underground Rail. But actually, I've just been with so many businesses where the customers aren't kind back, you know, and that's a big thing as well, isn't it?
Well, it's a classic. You know, I was stood in the doctor's surgery the other day, and clearly the woman behind the poor lady behind the desk was getting, it does say, you know, the big signs, getting abuse. And it is actually not her fault. The fault there is that they've not considered the processes. So they don't have the foundations for that clinic in place for that poor lady to do her job effectively. Because all she needs to be is the front face. She's the front facing person of that business. And unfortunately, the foundations they've got in place don't enable her to just be kind and lovely to people because people are being aggressive back to her. So that's,
you know, that's so just, I mean, landing on that point that actually operational excellence, some people call it, that execution is kindness. It's boring and unsexy sometimes and it's hard to do, but it's that foundation, getting those measurements right. That is a really kind way to let people have potential and do what they need to do.
It lets it flow, you know, do the groundwork and things will flow.
I love that. So Emma, what is your household item that personifies extraordinary leadership?
Well, obviously, I had to do something beautiful and aesthetic, and I am slightly obsessed with this. I don't know whether you can see it, Clarice Cliff.
Gorgeous.
So I don't have many because actually they're worth quite a lot of money now. But she was an amazing, amazing ceramicist in the sort of 1920s, and basically she was. Back then it was not an industry for women, and she was given an opportunity with a load of sort of defective ceramic ware, ghost ware they called it, to paint over the faults and the flaws. And because of it she started painting geometric shapes and something different, and basically single-handedly she revolutionized the Staffordshire pottery business at that end. And, you know, in the night, you can imagine how revolutionary, even looking at the handle differently, something like that was in the 1920s. I mean, they look contemporary now. And it was amazing. So by the time she'd finished, this was called Bazaarware, she had a team of 70, mainly, I think it was 68 women working for her on a team. She revolutionized the business and it was female founded. And even to this day is, just amazing. So I just love what she represented. She took something basic like a jug or a cup and did something different with it and still made it very beautiful.
I love that. It's how can we look that zoom out,
see
it differently. I want them. They're so lush.
They're great. They're great. Yeah.
Emma, thank you so much
Pleasure.
for joining us. It's been such an eye-opening, rich
Thank you. It's
conversation.
been fun.
So fun. Oh, thanks. One of the very impactful things that Emma has shared today is this thing of being a visual detective. And I really want that to stay with us. How can we dial up that extra from Emma's life into our ordinary of being a visual detective for our people that are working with us, for the projects we're working on, for our customers? What clues do we need to get more curious about to enhance our ability to execute more effectively and to create more effectively? We sometimes get so caught in the binary spaces we're in the execution, head down, burning buildings, troubleshooting. We forget to, what she says, zoom out. And I love that. Remember, she talked about on a computer or iPad, you zoom out. How can you today zoom out of your space and think differently about it? And she talked about going for walks, doing different things, coming away from the execution for a moment to get more curious and more creative, more passionate to go back in. But sometimes I just want to add to that you might need someone to help you do that. And that's where executive coaching is so powerful. And if you need help to pull back and zoom out and have a thinking partner to think differently about your execution, then get in touch, because myself and my team can help you really think in a wider angle view of your space to be more creative and to do things differently. And just like that beautiful ceramic range she showed at the end of that woman in the 1920s, saw things differently. Sometimes we really need to find that in ourselves. How can we see things differently to add extra into our ordinary and sometimes humdrum places? Thanks for joining us today. See you again soon.